Okay, you guys ready? All right, here we go. Guys, thank you very much for being on episode 4.0 of the Lucas Weaver Show. My guest today for the audience is Niels Meijssen and Mart Evers, the CEO and CMO of Moonback. So thanks, guys, for being here.
Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
And so, Mart, you're also the co-founder of the Story Network, correct?
That's right.
And so we met at the CIC, I think a couple of years ago. We've only spoken on the phone once, but it's good to meet you because we barely know each other, I think, even though we worked in the office for a couple of years together. I don't know you at all. So I'm very excited just to get to know you both personally, also to find out about Moonback, kind of everything that you guys are doing. So yeah, why don't we just start with how the two of you guys met and how you kind of started this little journey together.
Cool. Yeah, we met in at the Masters. Actually.
Yeah, we have to go way back for that.
I think that was 10 years ago when we graduated. So it was at RSM Rotterdam School of Management. And we organized a study trip together to Silicon Valley.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, pretty awesome. I think it was for me, it was, I think, the highlight of studying. Yeah, going with 30 people to California and Silicon Valley. Yeah, it was really awesome.
What all companies did you get to check out when you were there?
We visited 3 companies. The first was a startup, and they just raised 2 million, which was like a ton amount of money at that time for me. Compared to, I think, the startup scene in the Netherlands at that time. I think if you did a round of seed funding of 100K, 200K, that was already quite big. So it was really awesome to see them. And we also visited a space where co-founders could meet each other. And we visited an investor. So.
How was it meeting with the investor? Was it the typical kind of what you expected for a Silicon Valley investor?
I don't know, actually. Do you remember, Mart?
Wasn't he trying to get Dutch or European companies to the US and help them with like all the paperwork and introducing them to investors over there?
Yeah, it was a Dutch investor who moved to Silicon Valley, I think, 30, 40 years ago. And he did a lot of medical investments. So I don't think the typical investor who was looking for like a digital, scalable software business, but it was more hardware focused, I think.
And we tried to get in at Google.
How'd that go?
Because of course, back home we were thinking, okay, what companies should we visit? And then those are the easy ones that pop in mind. But of course, you have not any chance. And we tried to call and mail, but yeah, forget it. And then we were in the car and we were just passing their place and we were like, yeah, shall we just try? And they have all these bicycles on their campus so you can get around easily, but you can just grab them and like cycle around for a bit.
You don't have to scan anything or check them out?
They're just there. But then
for Dutch people, seeing a bike.
Dutch people, yeah.
You have a VIP card. You're just allowed to grab bikes anywhere in the world.
It's just a natural thing to do for us. But then as we got closer to the building, they were like, hey, what are you doing here?
That's funny because I've never even been to California, but you see those pictures of the kind of Google campus with all the bikes everywhere. And I assumed that Google was kind of like a fairly open place because of that. I didn't know that it's like, that's like the kind of communal area. And then it gets more secure like as you go in. So that's interesting.
So at least we got the pictures and that's all that counts.
Yeah. Is there a big sign, like a Google sign, like the I am Amsterdam sign or something like that?
Yeah, and traffic signs with all like, go for this building, go to the left.
So you guys, that's kind of how you got close, was planning that trip for your group in your master's program.
Yeah, planning that trip and finding sponsors to finance it. So it was awesome. And then we extended the trip. So we did, I think, 2 or 3 days like company visits. And then the rest of the 2 weeks were road tripping to San Francisco and Las Vegas, Los Angeles.
Oh, that's awesome.
We stayed at Venice Beach. And then we extended our stay actually for another 2 weeks. And we took the train from LA to Chicago and then from Chicago to New York.
Jeez.
Can you guess how much hours that train ride takes?
From where to where? From
LA to Chicago.
18. More? No, okay, it's got to be more than that, right? What? How much was it? 24?
40 hours.
40 hours. Dear God, the US is so big.
And we were like, hey, we want to see more of the country, so we could just fly, but we could also take the train and just look out the window. And it saves us 2 nights of accommodation.
True.
So we went for it, and it was really nice, but never again.
Jeez, man. But we drove once from Texas, East Texas to like Montana. I think that was like was that like an 18-hour drive or something like that? So I guess I was assuming that it wouldn't be that far, but by train. So how long do you wait at each stop whenever you're kind of going through?
Not that long, I think.
Not that long, no.
15 minutes, maybe 30 max.
And there weren't that much stops as well. So.
But still, that's like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You don't really have to do that again. I mean, you went from California to New York by train. Like, not a lot of people can say that, I think.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. US is so big. Like, people here in the Netherlands will find out that back before I had gone to New York, they would say, "You never been to New York?" And I'd be like, "No." And how could you not do that? I'm like, "I'm from Texas. That's like here to Rome, man." And then I'll meet those, people just like that. And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I've actually never been to The Hague." But they're Dutch. Like, I feel like you could hop on the wrong train and be in The Hague just by accident. Cool. So any cool stories from the Chicago or New York trips either?
And we promised each other to
keep those a secret.
For me, Chicago was like a big surprise because I love architecture. So we didn't plan that much in advance. But then when we got there, I mean, there's so much great architecture. So I remember we did this city walk with the Chicago Architecture Foundation, and it was really awesome. So much beautiful buildings, big Picasso sculptures, and then of course the Bean, which is very famous.
Yeah.
So that was for me a highlight of that.
I think I liked Chicago actually more than New York.
Yeah.
I mean, New York is just a place to be. You have to go there at least once in your life. But like Niels said, from the looks, Chicago is just nicer. Nicer vibe. The
wind probably made you guys feel at home as well. Yeah, they're not kidding when they call it the Windy City, though. Yeah, I don't know if I could live there because of that, but I've heard a lot of people that say that same thing, that they prefer Chicago to New York. And did you try any like deep dish pizza or any of that kind of stuff?
I can't remember anymore.
Oh, I can't remember.
It's 10 years ago.
How could you forget?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be legendary.
Yeah.
Did you go to a baseball game at all?
No.
Nope. We visited a jazz festival though. We were very lucky when we got there. There was like the yearly blues and jazz festival in the park where also the Bean is located. Yeah, but no, not any. Maybe baseball.
I only ask because that's a common thing tourists do when they go to the US is they go to a baseball game, and it's such a, like the odds of it being a good game are always kind of low. So it's like you hear a lot of tourists, we went to a baseball game, nothing happened. It was a terrible experience.
I did it later when I returned to the US. I visited Seattle and I went to a baseball. But it takes like 4 hours.
Yeah, that's long even for us. They're trying to like make the rules now where it goes faster because 4 hours, that's like a golf tournament.
Yeah.
You might as well plan a midday nap in the middle of it or something. Okay, so you guys go on the trip to the US. That's an amazing trip, by the way. It makes me quite jealous. So then you get back, you finish your studies, and then I'm assuming you go different ways. You get separate jobs. What kind of happens after that in both of your career paths?
I think we both went into consulting. I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur one day, but I didn't have an idea at that time. So I thought, why not start as a consultant and see a lot of different companies from the inside and see what I can learn. I think Mart took the same career path.
Yeah, but I focused more on marketing already from that point because I was a digital marketer at the university as well, like a side job, like working on the website of the university, which I really liked.
Nice.
I did that for a couple of years. So I also had some practical experience already in that field. So my first job was in consulting, but quickly after that, I moved on to digital agencies, which are like more or less the same type of company. You work for other clients. And then I started the Story Network, which was my own agency. But yeah, I talked to Niels and I was like, I did this now for a couple of years. I think I can do it myself. So should I try this? Well, you can guess the answer I got. And I was thinking, okay, I just go for it. And that was the Story Network.
So let's just talk about that little moment there for a bit. So you're working at an agency, you start to get that feeling like, because I think a lot of times agencies are a bit inefficient in the way that the resources are kind of pooled and what the client ends up paying for. And so then it's very common where you think like, okay, I can actually, I think, do this better for the clients on my own. So talk about that just kind of a little bit more in depth of what was that feeling that made you really feel like, no, I need to do my own thing. I need to kind of step out and do this more.
Well, when I applied at that agency, they were still quite small. So like 10, 15 people. And then you can really build a relationship with your colleagues, but also with your clients. And that agency grew very quickly to like 100, 200 people like crazy in a couple of years, which was really nice experience, by the way. And I really enjoyed my time there. But then there's more distance between you and like the actual client and the actual work you are doing. And it gets more managing and internal politics and etc.
Of course, yeah.
And there was always this nagging feeling like, what would have become of me when I would go into like having my own business just from the start. And of course, we spoke to each other regularly, so I could follow Niels along as well. And then I was thinking during that time at the agency, okay, what do I want in my career, in my future? I can develop myself here now, or I take a completely different path. And I was still feeling I just have to try this entrepreneur thing. If it fails, it fails, then I can have peace with it. But if it succeeds, I think I will be very happy.
So you just kind of had that desire to do it like so strong that the doubts and the resistance and stuff like that didn't even really matter all that much.
And at that time I was already an entrepreneur. So we had a lot of talks about it.
And so how was it for you? Because I don't remember the exact words, but you said a nagging feeling, right? To kind of do this for yourself. How was it for you when you decided to, because you said you already knew for a while that you wanted to be an entrepreneur. So what was the feeling that kind of made you actually, take the plunge and do it the first time?
I was just waiting for the right idea to come along. So, and in the meantime, just trying to learn as much as possible. And I really enjoyed it as being a consultant also, but when the first idea came along to start my own business, I took a chance and I went for it.
What was the first business?
The first business was actually, it started because of a challenge. There was a challenge to send in ideas for fixing like a problem in healthcare. So we had some brainstorm sessions with a couple of friends, also with Mart, and my mother works in healthcare, so I talk with her also a lot. And then we came up with an idea of helping a family to take care of someone they love, so like family care. And we pitched that idea, and it actually went really well, and got a lot of positive feedback. So we went along with that. And when I was in university, I already had a student company. So I was making websites for like small businesses and uncles. And so I already had some experience in the digital field. So then I combined those two. So I joined my old partner, who was longer in college. So when I did 2 years consulting, he was finished. So I joined again. And we actually did both. So we worked on this startup, and at the same time did some client work to finance it all.
Nice. And so how helpful was it for you guys to have like a friend kind of in the same situation with that same feeling of, because a lot of people may not get it, they may not understand that kind of feeling of like, no, I just want to do my own thing. How helpful was it to have somebody like just like you pretty much doing the same thing?
Yeah, it's so helpful. And I think it's not only for if you want to be an entrepreneur. I think in any field, if you want to be a great writer or want to be a great poker player, you should find people of the same age, who want to achieve the same things and share that experience.
And so you said he was kind of like, he was already an entrepreneur for 2 years at the time that you started the Story Network.
And you have to imagine, I think that also holds for you in your time as a consultant, having a job is actually a very comfortable situation.
Yep.
Because whatever happens, you get your salary, you keep the job, etc. So actually having someone that gives you the final push to actually take that step, that helped me very much. Just having the idea is one, but acting on it is two. And sometimes you just need some confirmation from someone else just saying, hey, just try and see what happens.
And to tell you what you already know sometimes. Yeah. Was there anybody kind of the opposite of Niels that was the not giving you the confirmation?
No, not really. No.
Just the little guy in the head, maybe sometimes.
Yeah, it's just me and myself. I think that holds true in a lot of situations. That you are your own biggest barrier.
Yeah. And so was Rihanna, was she involved in the beginning?
That's funny that you ask, because it's yes and no. Because Rihanna was a colleague of mine at Debs, at the digital agency where I worked. We had very good and close contact, but she left the company like a year before I did to go on a world travel, which was also a very brave step to leave the comfortable job situation. And during that time, I talked with a lot of colleagues about entrepreneurship, and then that idea grew and grew, so I could take the step eventually. But Rihanna, in the meanwhile, was living the life on the other side of the world. And then just about a year later or so, the Story Network really took off. I had another business partner with whom I took the plunge. But things were crazy and we couldn't handle it anymore. And we always kept in contact with Rihanna. So I said, hey, are you coming back anytime soon? Because we need you.
But I think that's a great way to start, where you kind of like, you get forced to grow, because you have so much demand and then you're just trying to keep up with it. I think a lot of people start the opposite, where they'll get the huge office and they'll hire people and they say, no, we're definitely going to have all this demand. And then it doesn't happen. And that's a much more difficult situation than starting small and manageable. But then you're just doing such a good job and the referrals start coming in. And like I was telling you on the phone the other day, you start telling people no. And it's, I think that's a great way to kind of like start off, because then you get so much momentum, so much feedback, and you really feel like, okay, I'm doing something here with this, And when I was looking at your LinkedIn, when you were kind of describing on your bio there about what you do with the Story Network, it's very similar. I had just read it for the first time yesterday, but it's very similar to what I said, that the reason why I wanted to start the podcast was because I felt like there's a lot of, on the internet, you see a lot of kind of personalities that are curated and stuff like that. And you don't see a lot of just real humans kind of telling you their real story. And that was kind of what I wanted to do, was just talk with real humans and have real conversations and then hope that other people would enjoy those and learn from it. And that's kind of what you said, your strategy with the Story Network is finding a way to, work with companies to actually tell their story in a human way.
Yeah. And that's what we always said when we were visiting a potential client or just anyone who wants to hear it. Everyone has a great story. Even if you work in what you think the most boring company, there's always a good story to tell. And that we turned into a business and works very well. And that we turned into what we now call Moonback, because that is basically all storytelling. And so that's really what I love to do and to work on.
Even after a year, there's not even a product yet, so it's all
it's all smoke and mirrors. Great job for a CMO. But so can you talk a little bit then about what is the story of Moonback? Like, what's that narrative there of why do we need it? Why did you guys create it? What do you hope to make better for us normal humans out here?
It started with a frustration. So just before COVID, I was on a 10-week sabbatical to Japan. And And then when I returned, one of the first things that I read was that Booking.com was applying for government Corona support. I think they got like $65 million euros. So that made me very angry because I knew that the company like a year before made like 5 billion in profit. So in 10 minutes, I wrote a LinkedIn post, showing my frustration. And I ended with, if I get 10,000 likes, I will consider a crowdfunding campaign for an alternative.
Really?
And then that LinkedIn post that went viral. And I think I spoke with Mart 1 or 2 hours after I did that post. And I was asking him, how long will it take me to reply to all these messages that I'm getting?
Yeah, will it take me the whole day?
That's insane. I didn't know this. So you basically post a post on LinkedIn frustrated about Booking.com getting this subsidy, and then it goes viral, and you said in it that you would do a crowdfunding, and then it happens. So then you're kind of stuck with, okay, I guess I have to do this.
I guess I have to do it, yeah.
And then you end up doing the campaign and raise $2 million on Crowdabout Now, right? $2 million in how long?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. But I think that there was 4 or 5 months between the LinkedIn post and the actual campaign, because there wasn't like a plan. So I did the LinkedIn post, and then after that I thought, oh my God, how am I going to, what did I done? How can I?
But you say that 4 to 5 months, like that's a long time. That's not long from viral LinkedIn post to, raising actual funds. That's quick.
Well, it felt like an age because we had so much stuff to learn and to figure out how to structure the company, if it's even possible and what kind of funds do you need to build an alternative. So there were so many questions that we had to find out and to validate. So we spoke to a lot of hotels in that time and preparing the campaign. So yeah, maybe it's quick, but it felt like a lot of time.
I bet if you're working that much, then of course it feels a lot longer to you. And so are you mainly targeting, you just mentioned hotels. Are you targeting hotels? Are you also targeting private residences like Airbnb style? What's the game plan there?
Only professional accommodation, so not like Airbnb, but no, accommodations in general. And now with the launch, we're focusing primarily on hotels in cities, but that's to find a niche that is that's small enough to be able to
carve out a little spot for yourself. Well, you have great timing because I've seen Airbnb trending, I think 3 times in the past month, and it's always for a bad reason. But it's mainly people frustrated with the product itself. It's not like a scandal, like, a base camp style thing or anything like that. It's more of the most recent one I saw is like, people are posting these photos of their original booking, which will say like 99 per month. And then it will say, 150 cleaning fee, 100 service fee, and then another like fee that came out of nowhere. And they're like, I'm going to start going back to hotels because this is why I started using Airbnb in the first place. And I did the same thing when we went to New York because we started with an Airbnb. The person canceled like 2 months later. So we have less than a month before we're going to New York City. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You can't do this. This is New York. I can't just get a place to stay in a week, or even a month was difficult. So Airbnb, of course, gave me a credit. So then I, get another room, and then that one cancels as well. And so then I tried to find a hotel, but they were just so expensive. It was, and luckily found one Airbnb, which was like a studio that this guy, a college student, rented out. He was going home for the weekend. He put it up last minute, we grabbed it. But I think that this always seems to happen. It's like Airbnb has started to solve a problem, what we were talking about. And then all of a sudden it morphs into the thing that it was trying to fight in the first place, And so now people are kind of going back towards maybe hotels are a good option. I think hotels started to get a bit of a bad rap because they do usually provide a pretty good service. They are consistent. You can kind of depend on them. And so now for you guys to come in and try to help out, that industry, which has been struggling, sounds like a pretty good opportunity.
I think that's a great point to raise because one of the most asked questions is how are you going to move people from the big platforms to your platform? because they were great like. So why would anyone just change what they already know? I mean, for hotels, it's obvious because we offer them a lower fee, etc. But for the consumers, it's less obvious. And it's my biggest challenge in my job to get that happen. But like you say, we take so much for granted and it doesn't work all great, like the examples you tell us now. Mm-hmm. So we did extensive research among hotels, but also consumers to discover what the experience is currently on these bookings platforms and what people actually prefer, how it should work. And with those insights, we are now building a new platform, which we think is a better experience for both consumers, travelers, and hotels and accommodations.
I think the root cause with all these problems that we see with these platforms is that it's not about the product. Products are great, but the company is usually, the company usually sucks because they only care about is the shareholder profit. I think that that should shift from shareholder value to stakeholder value. And I think that's the root cause of all these, problems and dominance of big platforms. They make great products. They brought a lot of innovation, but then in the end, when it's all about shareholders, then.
And so by stakeholder, you also mean the people using it. You also mean the hotel side and regular consumers. So you mean kind of everybody who has something involved with it. Yeah, I love that approach because I've been pretty vocally critical of Spotify lately because, Spotify, everybody knows how little they pay the artist. And recently it was rumored that the, founder is looking into I think he wants to buy Arsenal or somebody like that. And I'm like, you really have so much money that you can go buy an English football team, but you can't pay artists more than 1,000th of a cent per stream or whatever it is that they pay. And I think that's exactly the point of what you're talking about is what happens with a lot of these companies is shareholders come in or investors come in, right? They give you a lot of money and your dream is to kind of take this, problem solving platform that you have to the masses. Well, with this big investment, I can do that. So you take the money, but then all of a sudden they're like, we need growth. And so that's just new service lines, new things that you never even really wanted to do in the beginning.
Increase margin.
But now you need to increase margin.
And let's first acknowledge that entrepreneurs who start a thing, they have good intentions. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
Also with Booking, we firmly believe that. But then, like you say, it grows. New investors come on board. They have one and only goal, which is making profit as much as possible. And then you get these nasty tricks to get the last penny out of the company.
Yeah. And so what do you guys have kind of structurally in place? What's different about you that's going to, prevent that to be kind of more stakeholder value driven?
So we are a steward-owned company. And that means that we, like the voting rights and the profit rights are separated. So in a normal company, when investors come in, they give you money, but they also want voting rights. That's, I think, where it goes wrong. So in our company, the voting rights will always remain with us, with the founders. So investors can make a profit, which is capped, but they can never have a say in our company. So that, I think, will, in that way, we were able to always keep that mission at the core of the company.
And I think we struck a good balance there between being a commercial company but limiting these nasty side effects that I just talked about. Because people are also saying, oh, why don't you set up a non-profit organization? He even wrote that in his LinkedIn post in the first place. So it's still a running gag.
Yeah, but one of the reasons why I love what you guys are doing is because I don't think that you have to choose between being a profitable company and being an ethical company. I don't think that that's a choice that has to be made. That's one of the reasons why we were talking about Lindenham before, why I liked that idea, 3 years ago, was because this idea of, being profitable, but also, serving people that if you were just focused on profit, that you probably wouldn't normally serve. And there was a great article in The Economist a couple years ago that kind of changed my view on all this. And it was, I think the title was something like The Over Financialization of America. And what they were saying is that this argument too often gets oversimplified into, is profit evil or not? And that's not really the conversation. It's more about what happens when, stockholders kind of get it on board, because when you're only worried about a company's share price, you stop to actually think about the other things that really matter. I mean, if you look at, say, an Apple or something like that, what they should really care about above everything else is the people who are using the products and making the best products available. But when you become a $1 trillion company and everybody and their mom is dependent on your stock price, all of a sudden, it's like you have to, if your product is disappointing in the latest announcement, you got to call a press conference and calm people down. And that just seems, I think that's one of the things that, like you say, these companies start off with good intentions, but whenever the money gets to be too much of a controlling factor, it all just goes haywire.
Yeah. And we said from the beginning, there's nothing wrong with earning money. And it's good to have commercial businesses. And also in the hotel sector, it's commercial everywhere. So no problem with that.
And not being dependent on donations or subsidies. So.
Exactly. But then if we prove to be successful, we can get some compensation. Our crowdfunders and our investors can get some compensation, but enough is enough.
Right.
I mean, if you say one guy is now buying a football club or whatever, you might raise an eyebrow and say, hey, maybe he has enough.
Yeah.
And then why not invest that money back into the company, or when a global crisis hits, build some reserves to weather the storm, right?
Yeah.
So our crowdfunders can get a 3 times return. Then it stops.
It was equity investment, right? All those people?
Yeah.
And so they can get 3 times and then that's it.
And then their share will, what do you call it?
Be void.
Interesting. Is there a technical name for this? Technical term for the type of...
Yeah, it's called steward ownership, but it's like an umbrella term. You can have many variations and you can tweak it as you like, because it's a regular limited company that you set up, but like in your articles and associations, you make some different agreements.
Interesting.
Which we can show you if you want, but I warn you, it's quite heavy stuff.
I think we can fill another podcast with legal stuff. So
we'll save that one for my legal podcast.
If you ever want to make a legal podcast, yes, I'd be happy to join.
Well, it is. So I like the idea of the steward ownership, but I just wondered, I guess, on that, if you had a specific name for that type of, equity ownership, like where it automatically ends after you set a cap of how much they can, get on their return. But obviously the people who invested in your round knew that. And so they supported the mission and they kind of supported what you're about. And you make a good point about, and this is something that I wonder about, because I don't have any uber rich friends, who've been changed by greed or anything like that. But I wonder, like, okay, just like you just said, if you're the founder of Spotify, you've basically been subsidizing your growth on the backs of starving artists, let's say, right? You've been doing that for years, okay? And so instead of, when you get to the point where you actually start making some money, instead of paying that back to those artists that have been underpaid for so long, first you go give Joe Rogan $100 million, then you go give Harry, I don't know how many millions they got, but a lot of money. And then now you're going to go buy a football team. What happens from that person in the beginning who thought, I want to make this platform that will help artists, and do this and that? Like, what happens to that person when they get rich? And then it's like, all of a sudden it's all about me now, and
yeah, I don't know. I'm not that rich, but I hope, if I would ever be that I could stay true to the values that I have now. And so no, I don't know what happens, but you see it a lot. Look at Jeff Bezos. He bought a $500 million
dollar yacht, right?
Yeah. And I mean, there are a lot of people working at Amazon that can even make rent because the working poor is so yeah, I don't know.
It's also why I'm really happy that we made these values explicit. We wrote a manifest which sums this all up. And also we made these agreements already up front. So it was quite a hard conversation about the maximum compensation, salary, etc., etc. But we did that up front and we signed it. And now it's clear for everyone.
Is that available on your website somewhere or something where people can go
Not
see
yet,
it?
but we will publish that so everyone can look into it. but warning, it's quite heavy, but we're happy to give a summary. But I mean, also for ourselves and our other founders, it's good to have this conversation up front. So you already know what you're getting into. You know that enough is enough. And then you're doing it just for the company and the other stakeholders that will still be there.
But it's genius to do it now and rather than wait until later, because I heard a divorce lawyer say that like 10 years ago. He was like, you should always negotiate the divorce when you're getting married. When you still love each other, that's when you should do all that stuff.
Great example.
Because if you try to do it when you hate each other, it's going to end badly. And so everybody in the beginning is like, no, yeah, we can do half. We can do this and that. And then once they cheat on you and then you're getting the divorce, it's like, no halves anymore. So no, good that you guys kind of got all that lined out now. So what's the kind of game plan? I know that you were saying the launch is coming soon, right? And it's going to be an international launch. That's why you had the rebrand. So when is the planned launch? Where is it going to be? What's in store for us public people?
So we're launching in August for our crowdfunders first, like doing soft launch, and then in September for the big public. And then we launch in one city. And then in October we add another city. And hopefully another and another and another. So yeah, we're focusing on city trips first. But within that city, we try to have a very competitive offering of hotels. And then, grow city by city.
Did you say the city name just now, or are you keeping it a secret?
We're keeping it a secret. I think...
Within 2 weeks, we're going to reveal it.
Oh, man.
So I don't know when this podcast will be out.
About that time. It takes a while to edit it. Oh, man.
But I'm sure that everyone will love the city and can't wait to go there.
Now you got me thinking. I'm all distracted trying to figure out where it's going to be. No, it's okay.
It's outside the Netherlands.
That's that. Okay, that helps. Great hint. Let me narrow that down.
We have a post running on our Instagram, which we ask people like, hey, where do you think we are getting started? But many people think like Rotterdam, Amsterdam.
So now you got a little sneak hint here. If you tune into the Lucas Weaver show, you got a huge hint that's going to help you narrow it.
We play this podcast backwards.
A little Stairway to Heaven action. Oh, well, now I really want to know, but it's okay. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss it because I was like, did he say it? And I just missed it. Do I need to listen better? All of a sudden, you're thinking a million thoughts at one time. Okay, so you're doing soft launch in August, you said, with the crowdfunders of the original campaign. And then after that, you're going to have the public launch in this undisclosed city. Sorry, I had a little cough there.
Did you just say it?
Did I say it? I'm guessing. Okay. And so then kind of what are your grand plans? Like you want to start small, and I know you said go city by city, but is it like you want to be pan-European? You want to be just like in the major cities and see what happens and don't plan too much? What are your kind of thoughts?
Yeah, in order to be profitable or viable in the end, we need to have like the major cities in Europe because there's where the volume is.
Yeah.
And you need that volume to be sustainable. So that will be the goal for like the upcoming years. But we also know we would need additional investment for that. So that's what we already slowly start looking at and need to be really working on by the end of the year. Because otherwise 2 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but yeah.
It is, but it's not, yeah.
I think that there are 3 stages in startups. This is not new, but we have the problem solution fit. I think we did that with our LinkedIn post and our crowdfunding campaign. Mm-hmm. But now we're looking for the product market fit. So we really need to prove that travelers love our site, that accommodation owners are happy with it. And I think we can prove that in the first 2 cities. And when we get to that point, then we're able to scale because then it's attracting people, finding new cities to launch. And for that scaling phase, we need new investments, but we need to prove that we really have product market fit. So we're thinking about which metrics should we measure? How can we prove that it's really, really working? And I think that launching so small in 2 cities is a great way to get to that product market fit.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is I just wonder if there's like a network externality effect going on there, where it's kind of like you need to have enough cities to where then people think, well, okay, I can't. If you think, I can only go to that platform just to book in these 2 cities, will they still go there? So I just wonder how that factors in. But I think, like you said, you have enough people engaged now and interested that you have enough to kind of get the ball rolling.
Yes.
And I think that's why it's so smart that you focused on the narrative part of it, the story, because you're going to need that in order to get that, initial traction.
In the end, you're right. I mean, if you don't have the offering, then people might want to book once or twice, and then they visited all the cities we offer. So we need that in the end. But now we have such a big group of enthusiastic people. Our assumption is they will just go anywhere to the cities we have to offer, because they really like us and they really want to use the platform. And they're also happy that they can travel again after
I was just about to
one
say
or
that.
2 years. So it doesn't really matter that much.
Have you guys been vaccinated yet? Are you old enough?
No.
Just kidding. They say, middle of June, I think, is when I'm supposed to get the letter, maybe. So I'm just trying to get vaccinated before Tomorrowland in September, and that's my only goal. Yeah. So, but no, you're right. You have so much pent up demand for travel, and I mean, it's you've got perfect timing in a sense, because you have been pre-launch during all of this crisis stuff, and now as soon as it's kind of, man, people are going to go nuts. I think. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think all this, you've been sitting here in your same place for a year and a half, like
everybody's sitting on his savings.
Exactly.
And actually, the same goes for hotels, right? They have had a very difficult time, still have, and hopefully things will get better soon for them. But this also opened up the opportunity for them to look around, see what else there is to offer besides the big platforms. So that made it actually quite easy for us to get a foot in the door, also at major hotel chains, etc. I think we were really lucky with that as well. And then we can prove it and then take the next steps to other cities.
Do you have a few USPs you can mention, maybe for users and for like hotel owners, like that kind of is a better, offering for them than maybe the other platforms that exist?
I think for hotels, it's not only about the platform fee or commissions that we charge that are more fair, but it's also the way we interact. It's more like a partnership. So they're really fed up with the dominance they have with the big booking platforms, and so, for instance, also the ranking of results based on commission. So they force you to pay more commission to get higher up in the rankings, that kind of stuff. Yeah, we don't do that. So I think for hotels, it's a fair commission and a partnership. For travelers, maybe you recognize all these messages and dark patterns that are used to force you into booking as quickly as possible. So I think it will be a more
user-friendly.
Yeah.
So you alluded to that earlier when you said I think you said not so nice or something like that, things that they're doing, and you mentioned it now specifically with the dark patterns. And so you guys, that's kind of a part of your marketing strategy, is committing to not doing these, this dark marketing kind of stuff.
And not just that, but actually create a good experience for the user. So we talk to a lot of them, and they say, like, we spent nights with 47 browser tabs open looking for the right hotels. And people just accept that is how it works. But then we thought, no, this really sucks. And that's not even a dark pattern, right? It's just how those websites work. Oh, sorry, Siri. It's just how those websites work. And we thought, okay, how can we sort of reinvent the wheel here? We start with a blank slate. We can use the newest technology, which is really great. So,
and if you design a website with travelers in mind first instead of shareholders first, you end up with a different product, I can promise you.
Yeah. So one of the things that is really in your face is normally you'll enter like the city where you go in your date, and you get a very long list of hotels and 1 million filters, and it's like, good luck with that. Book as quick as possible because there's only one room left.
And there's a timer, countdown,
Exactly.
ticking in your face.
But what did we hear from travelers? What's the most important thing when they are booking a hotel is the location. And not just the city, but the exact location in the city. So they know if they are close to transportation or to sightseeing, etc. So we thought, hey, why not just start with that? Not provide a list, but just give the map with all the hotels on that. And then ask some questions about what's the purpose of your stay? What kind of hotel do you like? And of course, with how many people are you coming, what dates, etc. And then just show only those hotels on the map that fit
narrowing down the results. So to make a comparison, I think e-commerce, like for the last 25 years, it's like going into the IKEA, into the warehouse and finding that little screw for yourself. And the experience that we would like to give is that an employee asks you a couple of questions and then walks with you to that place. So
and then just give you enough choice to still feel in control, but not like overwhelm you with 100 options.
Makes sense. It sounds much more helpful. A lot of it kind of has gotten a bit out of hand, especially on Amazon, where it's kind of like, I feel like half the time, the only way I can find something is by searching for the thing that's similar to what I want and then looking in the related stuff at the bottom. So, and it shouldn't be that way, when you have a $1 trillion, e-commerce retailer, but
basically, if you think about it, Amazon started 25 years ago, and it's basically they just put their paper product catalog online, and in 25 years, in the core, it hasn't changed. It's still an online product catalog, and it's up to you to find the right needle in the haystack. Whereas if you go to a physical store, you get the interaction with the employee there. If you just want to look around, fine, nobody will bother you. But if you have a question or if you want help, they are there to talk to you. What is it actually that you want to use your product for? Then they will think for you, okay, then you need this or that specific product.
So we're now researching which 5 to 7 questions we need to ask to help travelers find the right hotel.
My dad made a point once when I was a kid where it was like the internet was supposed to make all these things so much easier, but actually it used to not actually be that hard. Like he was trying to order Houston Rockets tickets online, and it was all this kind of like, first you got to sign up for an account, then you got to do this, confirm your email address, all these little gates we've put up. And he was like, I used to call and say, I want 2 tickets for this date. Here's my, credit card number, or I'll send you a check or something like that. And so a lot of the things, like you say, the internet, so many things have become so much easier, but then so many things we're actually making more difficult than we need to be with all these artificial hoops.
And I think our product team there is doing a really good job. Like they also want to create the best experience for users, whether it be hotels or travelers, it doesn't matter. So they think very well how to design the product. And then we build a prototype. We test it with the actual user. So yesterday we had 3 calls, or I wasn't on it, but the product team had 3 calls with hotels walking through the partner portal. And they got a ton of feedback on maybe small things, and not major things are broken. So in the core, they did a very good job, but there are so many things that still can be tweaked to make it more clear, easier, etc. Yeah, and that's
small. If we ask for a phone number, but then the hotel says, is it my personal phone number, or do you mean the phone number of the hotel? I mean, those small details, they can make a huge difference, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a $1 trillion company, you just don't care about those small details anymore, or what you think are small details but are really important for the user.
Yeah, it's interesting about Amazon because they, their mission statement has always been to be the most customer-centric company on the planet, is what they say. And so I've said this a lot when people will talk about the way that they treat their employees, but it's nowhere in their mission statement to be the most employee-centric. It's all about the customers, supposedly.
I think it's the most shareholder-centric company.
Yeah, so I think where they started with the customer-centric was with like the low prices and the fast delivery and stuff like that. And then you can return anything, basically anytime you want. Like all that stuff was super easy. But all that stuff is still very like, it's a lot of numbers. If you wrote a bunch of numbers down on a spreadsheet and you said, okay, well, our return rate is this, return rate is that. If we allowed the return rate to go here, our profit would come down this much, but actually long-term profit would go here. None of the actual things as far as like the human kind of centric type things when you're talking about the UX and this online catalog that they just basically put on a box in front of your face, none of that is human centric at all. So I think customer centric is really a myth where it's more like they're definitely profit centric, you know, but it's just that they know the profit's going to come from the customers. Yeah. So they've identified the few ways how they can kind of manipulate customer behavior to maximize profit. And then it's exactly like you say, it's just how many industries can we expand into subsidizing, you know, with this and that. Like they're using Amazon Web Services to basically subsidize every other, you know, industry. And then they're basically going to drive FedEx and UPS out of business, you know, because they don't have to make money from shipping because they make it from the cloud computing, and they don't care at all about people in really any way.
But what's really nice to see is there's also a shift now in the consumer's mindset. Because it's great that we get our product delivered the next day, free returns, etc. Of course, we all like that, but we now start to realize that there's also a huge downside to that. And that's like the extortion of the workers, the environmental effects, etc., etc. So people are now more consciously thinking about, okay, what kind of business do I want to be involved in?
Yeah,
like buying products or whatever interaction they have. And that's why also now many people are so angry at booking. So a couple of years ago, they would just think, okay, I can buy or I can book a hotel, free cancellation, etc. That's fine by me. But now hearing all this news and understanding how those companies act, they say, okay, I don't actually want to use that anymore. I want a great product, but I also want to interact with a company that is great. And I think, that's now time for a new generation of companies.
Which it really seems like you guys are, because I think, you know, you joked about that there's nothing but the story yet. But I really think it's something like you just said. People expect brands to now all of a sudden every brand has to be political. You have to be ethical. You have to know, they have to know where you stand on kind of every single issue. Like we want companies to be more human in a sense, and we're going to seemingly hold them accountable if they're not. And you're right. I think like people start to think, okay, I could buy this from Amazon and get this super cheap and not have to go anywhere to get it. Or I could buy it from that mom and pop store that I know sells it for a little bit more expensive. And I think you guys are definitely tapping into that, because even if the price is the same, you know, or even if you're a little bit higher, like I think that when people connect with your story and they love what you're doing as a company, you know, in a human way, that's what you need, I think, to have people, you know, actively use your platform.
Yeah, and our bigger goal is also to set a new standard for online platforms. It started with hotel bookings, but I really hope we can inspire other entrepreneurs to do the same for ordering meals or a taxi or buying a book.
Easy. That's a pretty big competitor there.
Yeah, it's of course the biggest challenge to take it up to such enormous companies.
Yeah.
And that's why we also take it one step at a time and first verify our idea, then the product market fit, etc., and only then grow.
So was there anything kind of in either of your guys' background that led you to this kind of view that you have on the world? Because a lot of people don't have this, right? Like a lot of people, and I assumed that the Spotify founder was a good guy when he started it. He might not have been, right? But I think a lot of people don't have this view. A lot of people just want to get rich and get their yacht, you know, and then leave them alone. But both of you guys, I think, already have this kind of thing internally where this is something that you care about very strongly. So is there anything in your background that you think maybe led you to be this way?
I think, how I was raised by my parents, I think is really important. Education. Maybe also political beliefs. So I think that there too much difference in earnings between like a few billionaires and the rest of us. So inequality, I think, is is one of the biggest problems of our age. And then with my background of business administration and having a digital studio, I'm really at a good place right now where I can combine those things.
Yeah, and also I really like that you can solve problems with businesses.
Yeah.
And it's not only about the money. Money is a part of it. It's also important. But at the end of the day, it's not about the money. The money is a result of what you are achieving. So you say many business entrepreneurs go for the profit. But I think if you ask any average SME business owner, I think you will find a lot of passion there, and they are loving the work that they do, and they are happy that they are self-employed and not working for a boss. And good for them if they are financially successful with that. I think everyone cheers for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But only then when big investors come in and take over and take all the profits, you see it also with the big department stores like HEMA, then people don't like that anymore for a good reason, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know a lot of entrepreneurs as well who start with the dream of getting rich. It's always because they love a market or a product, or it goes wrong when where shareholders, investors come in. So I think it's really important to structure your company in a way that cannot go wrong.
Right.
And you have to do it in the beginning, because later on it's when they're already in, it's not possible to change it anymore because they can block it. So.
Yeah.
In the core, there's nothing wrong with investors, of course. We will need a second round of funding as well. But it's the intention of the investors. And for the majority, the intention is to get as much profit as they can, because they know 9 out of 10 companies they invest in will fail. So they have to make it up with the 10th company. So they need a very high return, and they will do anything to get it. But you see also now in the investor space, new types of investors emerge.
Yeah.
Like the more sustainable-minded investors, impact-driven investors, you name it.
Yeah.
Or crowdfunders.
Crowdfunding, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Crowdfunding, I think, is quite revolutionary, because you're literally, empowering people to, make financial decisions, because they would not be able to fund a company like you guys with just their, 100 euros, 500,000. But if you take, another 7,000, 10,000 people, all of their money together is one powerful voice. And I think that's what's so amazing about crowdfunding. But And so what I hope is that this trend of what you guys, I think, are in kind of the early phase of these kind of ethical, startups kind of deal, mission-driven startups in a way. I hope that does become the norm. I hope more people see what you guys are doing and other companies like you, and they say, we can do something like this. Because too often, I think people who have the ethics or the morals that you guys do they don't feel empowered enough. They don't really feel confident enough to actually compete against the people who are kind of oppressing them. You know what I mean? So that's why I think it's great that, one of your goals is to inspire people. And I hope that you, keep that up and become one of those great examples where people say, no, we can be like those guys.
And I really believe those people should feel encouraged, because we got so much support. It's unbelievable. Not just the crowdfunders, but every day we get emails with, hey, what a great initiative. When can I book my hotel? They are so impatient. So many people support things like this. So if you have an idea, really you should go for it.
So what other kind of advice would you give people? Because I think a lot of people are probably sitting around waiting for that one LinkedIn post to go viral, but oftentimes they don't see all the hard work that goes in, or all the things you've done before that point to kind of make the conditions ripe for, like, say, a viral post. So yeah, I guess it's a two-part question. One would be, what would you say to people who are kind of on the sidelines where you guys maybe were a couple of years ago, to how to get started with the right idea? And then, secondly, what kind of hard work went on behind the scenes before the viral LinkedIn post that people may not be aware of?
Well, I think I don't agree that a lot of people are waiting for a viral LinkedIn post. I think the biggest mistake that I see with starting entrepreneurs is that they're putting too much time and effort in building their solution. without verifying if people are waiting for that solution. So I think it would be great to start with a LinkedIn post to see if it gets traction. Maybe ask a question and find potential clients to interview and to see if there's a market for your idea. So I think and crowdfunding is also a great way to validate that. So it's not only for the starting capital, but it's also validating that that you can build a community around your idea, and that it proves that there's going to be a market for your idea.
And like I said in the beginning, everyone has a great story. So don't keep that for yourself. You can share it with the world. Find a stage that you feel comfortable on. Can be online, can also be offline, doesn't really matter. And just see what part of the story sticks to the audience. And it's much easier to tweak your story a little bit each time than to first build a product and then test that out and have to tweak that. That's much harder in the beginning.
You both are giving fascinating advice here. So you're both basically talking about a minimum viable product, but yours is more on the product side and yours is more on the marketing side. So you're basically saying start earlier in the sense of when you have the solution that you think will actually serve people, try it very early on to see if people actually do want it and if they will use it and things like that. And then you're saying test out different, parts of your story and then find out which one works the best and then kind of leverage that one.
Yeah.
So
and you don't even need like a real working product. A product can also be a landing page, or it can also be some sketches of an idea of an app. A product can be more than a working technical designed and programmed product.
It might even be more important to build a community around your. I hope I don't piss off a lot of people now, but you also see it with some other podcasts, for example, that are creating a huge audience because they make a great podcast, which people really enjoy. And then as a sort of side hustle, they start building products or whatever, a subscription service or whatever. And then people are willing to pay for that. Would they be willing to pay for that without being a part of that community first? I don't believe so.
It was also a difficult decision, but I think I'm very happy we did. We never showed any visual of what our product was going to be. So in our crowdfunding, only the story, our mission was central, and we said, trust us. If the crowdfunding is a success, we will also make a good product because we have the experience, we have done it before. But we never showed any
concepts or mock-ups or.
Indeed.
So it's just about you guys. It was just about you're saying this is who we are. This is our backgrounds, what we believe in. With this is what we want to do. Either support us or don't. And they did.
And they did.
And so you have all this kind of stuff. I think it's smart that, you have all these things kind of written down in your legalese, I guess, to kind of prevent things from going wrong later, because you are kind of asking people to put a lot of trust in you in a sense of, ultimately the worst case scenario would be you just become another douchebag booking platform. And then they would just have to see you online and think, oh, I thought those guys were going to be better. But I think that's another good thing about having that kind of community behind you is they also keep you kind of tied to that, is you're not just like a couple of guys who say, or you have like, how many co-founders are there, by the way, of the company? It's quite a few, right? Do you know the exact number?
7.
Yeah,
7. So you're not just 7 people who, just kind of like, oh, we actually feel really moralistic about this stuff, but we're just going to market it as a normal, booking platform. Like when you market yourselves as that in the beginning, and then that's what the community kind of builds around. You kind of have to stay true to that in a way, or else.
Yeah, we have 1,500 investors, and a lot of them are also friends and family. So we have to stay true to them.
Sometimes we get some negative comments and they say, okay, I really like your idea. I like you guys, but in a couple of years, you will just sell it to Booking or whatever. And then we can say, we made that impossible.
Did you really?
With our legal circus there.
Yeah, because that was, so I also, I forgot that I wanted to talk about this, but when I see your LinkedIn posts, I always translate them because I think they're quite interesting. And they normally get shared by somebody else. We just connected like last week, but I've already seen probably 4 or 5, posts from you from other people. I've always thought it's a very smart marketing thing strategically, because a lot of people would think like, oh, if you want to be successful, like let's say in the booking, area, don't insult booking.com, because that would be the worst thing to do. Actually, that's the best thing you can do, because if you make noise and you become a problem for them, well, then all of a sudden they have to address it. So now maybe they spend some money to acquire you or something like that. So a lot of people have taken that route before, where it's like, oh no, we're going to become a problem for them. They just shell us out some money to acquire us. And one could think that that's what you were doing. But so you've already, made it impossible for you to sell to booking.
Yeah, so we have an external foundation in place that have like a golden share, so they can.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, so they can veto if we want to, change the structure of the company. So we cannot be acquired, or we cannot change this
without
separation.
their vote.
Yeah, without their vote. So
if like some amazing human focused kind of thing wanted to come in and acquire you, then they could go ahead and
we could be acquired maybe by another Steward owned company, but I don't see Booking becoming a Steward owned company.
No, not very soon.
No, not probably before the next global pandemic, I would say. So what I wanted to follow up on was the good advice that you guys gave to the other entrepreneurs, which was to basically, start small, start with something that is important, which I think really goes to the scale and the focus. Is like you really have to kind of have focus on what your core is going to be, what need you're going to solve, but then actually prove that people want it. And then crowdfunding is a great way to really, prove that on a massive scale. But then you guys just kind of also said, in a way, be who you are, like be yourself, and then build a community of people that, believe in you. And so I think it's great that you guys have just kind of decided to own who you are, and then make that a core part of your company's identity in a way. And you have 5 other co-founders along for the ride with you. Are they all pretty, similar backgrounds in the sense of or I guess they all have to kind of share in the values in a way of what you guys want to do. So everybody's committed and kind of excited about this steward-owned model?
Yeah, everybody really shares the values, but with a very different background. And that's also what we need to make this company into a success. So there are also people with a lot of experience in operations, or like a CTO and marketing. So yeah, all these different experiences, backgrounds together, I think we have a really strong team now.
And it's that many people for a reason, because it's very uncommon to have such a big founding team. But we also have to do a lot of work. We already did for the crowdfunding, and we get many people asking us for help with their crowdfunding, or to give them some advice. And what they just saw was like the last week of the crowdfunding where it all blew up.
Yeah.
And what they didn't see was 6 weeks before that, where we had to work day and night and contact as many people as possible to fund the campaign. And 4 months before that with preparing everything. So we really needed that much people to get this off the ground. So if you want another piece of advice, that's you have to work hard.
Always good advice. One thing, what I wonder about now is, because everybody so agrees on the important stuff of the values and things like that. But how do you then make sure that you kind of keep diversity of thought in the company, in a sense that it could be easy to where you get a lot of people who, let's say we're really liberal and like we hate, capitalism and all this stuff. But then all of a sudden you kind of have this echo chamber and everybody, is just telling each other that they're right all the time. So is that something that you guys have thought about, and you try to make sure that whenever you're having these kind of discussions and debates or whatever you want to call them, that you do still have diverse, people in the room?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because traditionally that would be the role of the investor shareholder. Like they come in from outside to give their opinion and their direction. So that's something we don't have. But therefore we have an advisory board in place with people with a lot of experience in the business, each of them representing one of the stakeholders within our ecosystem, so to say. And they give very valuable insights each time we speak to them. And it gives us a lot of food of thought as well. And I think that board really helps us to keep our thoughts fresh and gets also some criticism. I think that's important as well.
Yeah, and we're writing like a newsletter every other week. we do that since the beginning of the first LinkedIn post, and every newsletter gets so much replies that also our community keeps us sharp.
Definitely.
And so, do you have any advice for people when they're kind of choosing co-founders? Because maybe not everybody has like the, best friend from years ago that they can kind of, or a big network even. Do you have any advice for if you're trying to start something, like Moonback, and you need to kind of get a little team together? Any advice for how to do that best?
I think LinkedIn is a great place to start. Start writing about what you're about to do and increase your network. I think when it's possible, again, go to like founder meetings.
I would actually say something in another direction. Do it with someone you've worked before. Doesn't necessarily have to be friends, but we also worked before in a business setting. I think that's the best way to know someone and their values and their way of working. Because you need to rely on each other very much when you start a company. So I would always go for that, and that's also what I did. And make good agreements up front, once again, because then you make everything explicit. You know how to deal with each other, and then you're good to go.
Nice. All right, I have one more question because normally I ask people about like the resistance that they felt at the time that they were starting the business, all of that kind of self-doubt and inner talk, that people have. But I think you guys covered that pretty well, when you discussed like kind of your experiences and stuff. So I then want to ask you, and I hate to put you on the spot, but is there any, like maybe if you can just pick one time in your career where you made a big mistake and how you recovered from it? Because I think oftentimes, a lot of people, they overcome that first hump, they get over that resistance initially, and then it doesn't always work out. But you kind of do have to, you have a failed startup, you have a failed, side hustle or business or whatever it is. And then something, you have to just be able to learn from it and then move on. Do either of you guys have some failure or mistake that you can discuss of, how you learned from that and moved on?
Oh, I just shared my lesson that I would start with validating the idea instead of building a product. But I made that mistake myself. With our first startup, we were so much focused on like designing and building a nice product, and also maybe too afraid to do marketing, to be on the stand, sharing your story. It was more comfortable to sit behind your computer and designing or writing code.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would like to share, is to get out of the building and share your story.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the time to think a little
Good
bit.
thing he had something ready to go,
Yeah, because I thought of something, but I wouldn't really call it a mistake, but I would say a big challenge for me when we were like 1 or 2 years on the go with the Story Network. I started with another business partner, and he left because he got a great opportunity at another company, and he went for that, which was a really great opportunity. So everyone was happy to go for that. But he was the one with the big network, with the contacts, etc., etc. So for the business development, we were quite relying on him. And I thought, okay, now it's completely over. I'm only with Rihanna left. How are we going to continue after when he left? So I had to pick myself up again and say, okay, no, we can do this with the two of us as well. We just go for it. Well, and you can guess it all worked out in the end. So I would say, in that sense, don't overvalue how much a company is relying on just one person or on you as a person. But then on the other side, don't doubt yourself that you can do something. If there's really a big need, I was at that point getting more comfortable to take the stand and to tell the story to the outside world, where I felt more comfortable of writing the code or maybe the copy behind my desk. And then suddenly I had to do that other part as well. And I learned a lot from then, overcame that challenge. And that's also part of entrepreneurship. You have to go outside that comfort zone. But that's also the place where you can learn a lot and gain a lot of skills and experience.
Even right now, I mean, I'm not that fluent in English, but here we're sitting.
Could have fooled me.
Recording an English podcast. So
you'll need to cut out some.
Yeah.
Chop out there. You just sound like robots after. So then last thing, where can people, follow and support Moonback? How can they, social media, things like that? Where do you suggest people go to follow your guys' story?
Moonback.com. There you can subscribe for our newsletter, which for the time being is still in Dutch. And we send it out every 2 weeks. And we tell the story about our company, what we are doing behind the scenes, etc. On Instagram, you can follow us. This is Moonback. There we put all the nice travel pictures and promotions. And LinkedIn as well, because we kept that one in the loop.
Nice. Yeah. You got to keep what got you started there.
Yeah, that worked. So,
all right. Well, thanks to both of you guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Rihanna also for setting it up. Also, yeah, it helps to have a rock star like her on the team whenever you're losing other people.
Shout out to Rihanna.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, thank you both so much for sitting down. I really enjoyed it. Love that I now actually feel like I know you both. And yeah, so thanks a lot. All right, that's it. Bye, everybody.